What is the first thing that you want to know?
So I want to know, what tips do you have for writing quick, effective copy for digital ads, particularly like a Google ad that use only around like 100, 120 characters.
Let me start by giving some sort of general notes on how I think about writing copy and short copy for ads. And then I want to have you tell me a little bit about, we'll kind of go through like a case study or a sample, and we'll try to actually write some copy on the fly here.
Sounds good.
But in general, I think it's really important to aim for clarity, not cleverness. So when people are seeing your ads, and especially you only have 120 characters or so, they need to really understand what it is that you're talking about, what the value is for them, and what you actually want them to do in a very concise way. And I think a lot of times people fall in the habit of, oh, this is really creative and this is really clever, but you have a context for what you're promoting that those people don't have, right? So that's not really going to work. You have to assume they have no idea what you're talking about or what you're doing. They're, if it's Google, they're just surfing for something, right? So you have to really emphasize clarity. Another sort of general note is, when possible, you want to use words and language that your target audience uses. So a lot of times you'll see people that they're promoting, maybe they're a consultant who has some package where they have some unique system where they help people get sales, let's say, right? And their ad is like, learn the 3X pyramid. Nobody knows what the 3X pyramid is. Nobody cares. Like, what the 3X pyramid does is get people sales. That's what they want. So, that ad copy would be more along the lines of, find out how to triple your sales, not learn the 3X pyramid. So you want to use the phrases and terms that your audience is using and talk about the things that you know that they want. The other thing is, with ads, the big advantage of digital and social ads is the ability to really hyper target stuff. And you want to take advantage of that. So you want to be as specific as possible to match your copy to your targeting. So a lot of times people will say, let's say they want to target entrepreneurs, and they'll create one ad and they'll target entrepreneurs on Facebook or whatever. Well, you could switch that and have half of it go to just female entrepreneurs, for example, and your copy could reference how female entrepreneurs can raise money, or whatever it may be. How female entrepreneurs can raise money is going to do better when targeting female entrepreneurs than just a general how entrepreneurs can raise money, because you're being more specific. So you really want to take advantage of that targeting capability in your copy, right? That's something you can't do. You buy a TV ad or something like that, or put an ad in a magazine, it's reaching everybody. The hyper targeting is really only beneficial if you use your copy to match it. Another thing is to remember that your goal in most cases with these ads, the goal of the ad is to get the click. It's not to make the sale. Yes, ultimately downstream, that's what you want. But your goal is, how do I create curiosity and draw attention to get someone to click this ad? The goal of the landing page, or wherever you send them next, is to convert that attention into the sale, the lead, the whatever it is that you want them to do. So I think being very conscious in what you're doing, a lot of times people are trying to sell in their ads, but really what you're trying to sell is the click. So that's a very different thing. You're not trying to convince them to buy. You're trying to draw them in and convince them to click. Sometimes those things are similar. Most times they're not. Another thing is, you want to, whenever possible, try not to sound generic, especially if you think about let's say it's Google ads or something like that. So many of those ads sound the same. So what can you do to sort of separate yourself a little bit, make it stand out? Obviously, that's a case-by-case basis, and there's a lot of variables, but it's something to try to keep in mind. Another big one, and this goes along with that, is your goal ultimately is to give people a reason to choose you. So let's say you're a web design agency, right? And people search for web designer, and they see a million ads for web designers. And all the ads probably say, oh, best web design in Los Angeles, or best whatever, right? What can you do that gives people a reason to choose you as opposed to everyone else? And a lot of times people default to trying to explain or say or claim that they're better, but better is not really a differentiator. It's a judgment call. So rather than say, we're the best web designers, you might say, we specialize in web design for restaurants. Something that goes, oh, I'm going to choose that one. Or you have that differentiates you from everyone else. We specialize in this. We've been doing this for 50, not a web designer, but we've been doing this for 50 years, or something that differentiates you. The idea is not just to convince people that you're good, but to give people a reason why they should choose you. Lots of people are good. Lots of people can design a website. And then the next thing I would say is you want to include a clear call to action that promises a reward when possible. A lot of times people are just sort of talking about the thing, and they're not actually telling people what they want them to do. And it doesn't have to be just click here, but you see this a lot of times with newsletter and email sign up forms where they just say subscribe versus get this thing, start your free trial versus sign up. So thinking about that when possible. And then the last thing I would say is copywriting is always an iterative process. So the truth is you have no idea what's going to work well or not until you're actually testing stuff and putting it out there. And I think a lot of times people go into this and they're like, they come up with a bunch of ideas. They pick the one that they think that is the best based on nothing. They just like, I think this one seems good. They put it out there and it doesn't really work. And they go, well, I guess ads don't work for me. And it's like, nah, maybe you were wrong. Like maybe there is an ad that works. You just didn't pick it, or it does work. And they might assume that's it. And they don't realize it actually could be better. So in success or failure, you want to continue to iterate, and you will learn as you go what your audience responds to and that kind of thing. So understanding that it's an ongoing process versus we take a shot and, oh, it didn't work for me, and testing all the different elements. And the same ad copy might work really well to one audience and not well at all to another audience. So there's a lot of variables. But so that's the sort of crash course in ad copy. But now let's try a stunt. So give me an example of something that you want to promote, that you want to write an ad for, and we'll sort of talk through on the fly how I might think about copy for that. So tell me what the thing is and who the target audience is and kind of what you want them to do.
Yep. So I think the one we'll try out is Torre Show. So it's a podcast that is for primarily a Black audience. His subject matter is talking to Black professionals, whether they be celebrities or influencers, politicians, but people who are accomplished in their various industries, and getting essentially a master class. And so our core audience are Black individuals between the age of 30 to 40. And geolocation tends to be a major city: New York, LA, Miami, DC. So think that kind of realm in terms of who we're speaking to.
Okay. And you want them to listen to a specific episode, I'm guessing, or you tell me? Or check out the show in general? Yeah. What do you want them to do?
I was originally thinking check out the show in general, but to the point you just made, it probably is better to be more specific. So maybe we want to point them to specific political hosts or point celebrity hosts. So for this example, let's talk about maybe people who are aspiring musicians. Learn from some of the best musicians out there is probably where we can lean into for this copy.
Okay, great. And are there particular names of like some sample musician guests that he's had on?
Sure. Kendrick Lamar, and I'll go backwards. So obviously he's more relevant now, but you also have people that probably fit better that demographic. So learn from people who played with Prince, learn from Ice Cube. And the other one I'll throw out is musician-wise. Who am I forgetting? That's a really big one. Yeah, let's go with those right now. Let's pick out with an blank.
Are they learning in those interviews? I'm sure he talks about a million different things, but let's take Kendrick Lamar as an example. So in the interview with Kendrick, is he talking about business career path? Is he talking about creative music creation? Like, where does it go? Where
it's
all
probably
of the
more
above?
Creative. It does hit business sometimes, but I think the core part of the interview is more creative. And I'll throw one other name out there that I meant to say, Mary J. Blige. That's a good name.
And same thing with her. It goes more in the sort of creative direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So the advice would be the same. So the first thing I would do is I'm going to give you two options here, right? So one is I would take the individual episode and promote that and go, I'm going to promote the Mary J. Blige episode to Mary J. Blige fans. people that are interested in Mary, all that kind of stuff, of which there's a lot. So that audience is plenty big.
Yeah.
And I would go through the podcast and try to get a sense, and maybe Torre even knows from the feedback. I'm sure there were certain moments that people reacted to.
Yeah.
The audience response, they couldn't believe when she said this. Oh my God, I loved when she said that. That was so fascinating. So that's tipping you off to things that resonated. That's market research, if you think about it. So let's say that, I don't know, let's say there's a bit where Mary J. Blige talks about how she writes a song, or how she could go in a bunch of different directions and you test different ones. But let's say it was how she writes a song. You might have a headline that's something like Mary J. Blige reveals her songwriting technique.
I like that word reveal too.
Right, because it sounds sexy, right? You're teasing. Yeah. This is the curiosity part. It's not Mary J. Blige talks songwriting. It's you're trying, the entire purpose of the ad is curiosity. Now, if I'm showing this to Mary J. Blige fans, by the way, I could also target songwriters, people in music schools who will also be interested in her songwriting technique, right? With the same ad, and I could test how that goes. But Mary J. Blige reveals her songwriting technique is going to be interesting, most likely, to Mary J. Blige fans. Yep. And so that's your headline. And then you have a little description that, again, is teasing whatever that technique is. So it might be the surprising story behind the creation of What's the 411, whatever. I know that's super old reference, but sure.
But that's the point. We're hitting that demographic, so.
Right. And actually, that's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you could, by age group, you could go, hey, the person in their 40s, there's a nostalgia piece now. But I might run the exact same ad to a person who's a little younger that references one of her newer songs or more recent songs. And again, this is also where it's iterative and you're sort of testing all the stuff. So when you have a guest like Mary J. Blige, I'm leveraging her as opposed to Torre, because if I'm trying to get people who don't know Torre yet, right, that's the key. Now, the other thing you can do is when you have a podcast and you have a bunch of episodes like this, you could create a piece of content that combines a bunch of those. So you might create a blog post with clips from Kendrick Lamar, Ice Cube, Mary J. Blige, whatever, and drive people there to a collection of these interviews. And then your ad might reference multiple of them, or you might run the same Mary J. Blige ads and just send her to a page with all these things. So now the people that you're sending there are understanding it's not just this one-off Mary J. Blige thing. Oh, this guy interviews all these musicians, right? Yeah. You could also go in a more generic route. Let's say you were targeting just musicians in general instead of like Mary J. Blige fans. And you could have a headline that's 5 best-selling musicians reveal how they launched their career, how they built their career. If I'm a musician who wants to figure out how to do that, that's going to be interesting to me. Same thing. You could roll up a bunch of your entrepreneurs. Let's even say you could do top African-American entrepreneurs share how they built their empires, or the secrets behind 5 African-American entrepreneurial empires. Again, secrets. Ooh, I'm kind of interested. What
exclusivity as well? Like, yeah, both those words, reveal and secret. Yeah, give this kind of exclusivity. That's why you're coming up versus anybody else.
Yep. So that's how, and a big thing to remember here, because a lot of people fall into this trap too, is the instinct is, let me promote the Torre show. Go check out the Torre show. But if you're trying to reach a new audience who doesn't know him, that's not compelling. Yeah. It's the content. It's that is compelling. I don't know if I don't know him, I don't care about his show. But if I want to learn how to become a successful entrepreneur, I care about that.
Yep. And we've made that mistake before, let's lean in the Torre, but you're absolutely right. We need to introduce new people to Torre.
Yeah. You want to bring them in, and then they discover him, right? He's not the hook. It's counterintuitive, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's the content. So cool. So hopefully that's helpful.